Hi everyone, welcome to the CZ Armor channel. Today we'll be looking at a SAR 724 Sport again. Not just any one though, this is a follow-up to my last video back from February in which I did a quick review of this handgun, talked about a few common points it has with the CZ75 platform, and it's really more like a small frame tonfolio clone compatible with CZ75 magazines. Most importantly, in that video, I was looking inside under the hood to find out what I felt could be upgraded by switching by either CZ or tonfolio respective aftermarket parts. So this is the video where I'll cover what was changed, why I changed what I did, and what benefit, if any, I noticed with these changes during the live fire test. Before anything else, let's talk about the parts that were replaced and why I replaced each of those parts. Everything in this bag, they are the original parts. So the first thing you're going to see out of it is the firing pin spring. So I replaced by a reduced power firing pin spring, and the reason was it was an anticipation of using a lighter mainspring, and that's to avoid light strikes. Next out of the bag is going to be the trigger shoe. So why do I wanted to change the trigger shoe? The Shadow 2 trigger shoe has adjustments for over travel and pre-travel. So instead of putting those controls in this trigger, I just thought it was better to feed the Shadow 2 trigger to the gun. And that's what I did. The next part is going to be the interrupter or disconnector, and this, what I did is replaced by an oversized interrupter from Patriot Defense, fit it to the gun, and this gives us a little bit better, less take up in single action basically. The next part was the mainspring. So the original plan was to use an aftermarket 14 pounds mainspring, the yellow one from Patriot Defense for instance, but it's longer than the one in the SAR. The one in the SAR is a little bit shorter. So what I did was I got a 16 pounds, I cut a few rings to make sure it fit in the gun, ended up with the same effect. So why do we want a lighter mainspring? Simply because that's going to be the shortcut to get a lighter double action pull. And finally, the last thing out of the bag is the trigger return spring that I replaced by a reduced power trigger return spring, an aftermarket one. Same thing, why you want a lighter one? That's just to get a compound, like lighter trigger pull, both single action and double action. So a recap of everything that was changed is a reduced power trigger return spring, an interrupter, disconnector, a trigger shoe, the firing pin spring, and the mainspring. Notice I did not replace the firing pin itself. Like I had a plan to put an extended firing pin, but the extended firing pin I got from a small frame, tonfolio small frame, doesn't actually fit the SAR, so the SAR has a different design. It's possible to fit that firing pin to make it work with the SAR, but I decided to test this setup without the extended firing pin to make sure I wouldn't have light strikes. If I had it, I would work in the firing pin, but I didn't have, so all the tests show, was successful with all kinds of ammunition, so I kept the original firing pin. So here's a picture showing the different trigger shoes. You can tell like the holes share kind of the same geometry, but the profile of the trigger on the side, and also this about the same curvature, so they are kind of basically the same trigger shoe, but you can tell that the Shadow 2 on the front of it has kind of a bump or an edge that goes forward while the SAR is flat. So I had to work and fit that out to make sure it worked. The Shadow 2 trigger worked in the SAR. You can also see both set screws to adjust both over travel and pre-travel that they're absent on the SAR trigger. Last thing I want to talk about before we go into the results is I had to polish those areas you see highlighted in yellow. The circle is going around the head of the trigger bar guide, so that rides underneath the trigger bar and has a considerable amount of friction there with the trigger bar, and then the two sides of the frame where the trigger bar touches on each side. So that's to give a better, smoother trigger pull, especially in double action. So let's check the results now. So I'm going to track the trigger weight in both double action and single action. The original measurement I have in double action was about 8 pounds and 5 ounces, and now we got 5 pounds 14.6 ounces, so a little under 6. If I do it again, got another 5 pounds 13 ounces, so under 6 pounds. So from 8 pounds and 5 to under 6, that's really good improvement. You can tell there's a little bit shorter reset as a result of that over travel limitation with the set screw. So really good, it's a really good feeling there. A lot less take up in single action as well. So if we go measurement, measure the trigger weight now in single action, the original measurement I had was 3 pounds and 6 ounces. Now with all the modifications we did, I got to 2 pounds 1.7 ounces. That's almost too light. If I do a second measurement to make sure, you'll come up to 2 pounds and 4.3 ounces. So significantly under 3 pounds. So really good single action pull as well. Much smoother. Really happy with this trigger. And now the next thing we're going to see here is the field test. So first I just want to have a kind of a feel for the trigger and just put some rounds downrange. Not really anything I was trying to accomplish here, just feel what the gun feels like now without the modifications. I'm going to play with the blade rack a little bit just to check some accuracy at speed, and it worked pretty well. Last thing I tried there is put a paper target about 10 yards and do some shooting like I would do in competition, some quick follow-ups and double taps, some control doubles just to make sure everything matches. And yeah, all in all, this gun feels great. The modifications worked really well. It's a much better trigger now than it was before. Would I do that? Would I recommend those modifications? Well, only if you're really going to go for competition, if you need a lighter trigger, shorter trigger, things of that nature, then yes. But if it's just, just for fun, just as a gun or a duty gun or self-defense or anything like that, you wouldn't need to do anything like this. This gun out of the box it's pretty good. I'm very satisfied with it. So this is it. I hope you guys enjoyed, and see you guys in the next video.